Welcome, everyone. Here's your Science News Bulletin for February 24th, 2026.
All right, first up, let's head out into the cosmos. We're going to take a look at our own galaxy and then check in on a huge milestone in particle physics. So get this, astronomers at the University of Calgary have just put together the most detailed map ever of the Milky Way's magnetic field. And this is a huge deal. This invisible force is basically the skeleton holding our entire galaxy together, keeping it from just collapsing under its own gravity. But here's where it gets really wild. The map showed something nobody expected: a massive magnetic reversal deep inside the Sagittarius arm. The field there is flowing counter-clockwise, completely opposite to the rest of the galaxy. You can just feel the surprise in that quote from Dr. Joanne Brown. I mean, can you imagine seeing that pop up in your data for the first time? Okay, let's switch gears a bit and zoom into the world of high-energy physics. Over at CERN, they've just hit a really critical milestone for what's called the High-Luminosity Large Hadron Collider, or the High-Lumi LHC for short. Now, this upgrade is a game changer. It's designed to ramp up particle collisions by a factor of 10, which means scientists will be able to get a much closer look at some incredibly rare particles. And to pull this off, the conditions have to be, well, extreme. They've started cooling this enormous 95-meter test stand down to just 1.9 Kelvin. To put that in perspective for you, that is a bone-chilling minus 271.3 degrees Celsius. All of this is to test the powerful new niobium tin magnets that are at the heart of this whole upgrade.
Okay, let's bring it back down to Earth and talk about health. We've got some really significant updates in Alzheimer's research, a fascinating new approach to cancer, and a new look at infectious diseases.
So in the fight against Alzheimer's, there's actually a double dose of good news on the early detection front. We're seeing two different, really promising paths. On one hand, you have researchers at USC who found that the disease might actually start with these silent drops in the brain's blood flow before any of the typical plaques even show up. And then, on the other hand, scientists at Washington University have developed a simple blood test. It measures a specific protein, and it can predict if someone will develop symptoms 3 to 4 years down the road. Both are just incredible steps forward.
All right, now for a more sobering story. A massive nationwide study out of Harvard has found a statistical link, an association, between living near nuclear power plants and higher rates of cancer mortality. The researchers estimate that around 115,000 cancer deaths in the U.S. between 2000 and 2018 might be associated with living in proximity to these facilities. Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand the context here. The researchers themselves are very clear. This shows a correlation, not proven causation. They did a lot of work to adjust for other factors, things like income, smoking, and access to healthcare, but they stress that this is not proof that the plants directly caused these deaths. It's a signal that they believe warrants a lot more investigation.
From a statistical study to a brand new battle plan against cancer. This one sounds like something out of science fiction. Scientists are now engineering bacteria to literally hunt down and eat cancer. They've managed to tweak these microbes so they can invade tumors and consume them from the inside out. What's so clever about this is that the bacteria thrive in the low oxygen core of a tumor, a place that's notoriously difficult for traditional therapies to reach. And another major health story making headlines, a new global study has revealed a really significant connection. It turns out that obesity is linked to 1 in 10 deaths from severe infections across the globe. The reason, they found, is that it can compromise the immune system's ability to fight off pathogens effectively. We're about halfway through our updates. If you're finding this bulletin informative, please take just a second to like this presentation and subscribe for more updates. It really helps us out. All right, now let's shift our focus to our changing planet. We've got some surprising new data on ancient ecosystems and a major confirmation of a global trend. So researchers have been looking at Africa's largest blackwater lakes, and they found they're releasing huge amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere. But here's the alarming part. Up to 40% of that carbon isn't new. It's coming from ancient peat that has been locked away for thousands of years. It's a pretty clear sign that this whole ecosystem is becoming destabilized. And speaking of global trends, we now have definitive confirmation on sea levels. A 30-year analysis using space-based lasers has just wrapped up, and the verdict is in. Global sea levels have risen by 90 millimeters since 1993. And the data is clear that this is being driven mostly by the melting of land ice.
Now for a really fascinating, and I should say pretty controversial idea. A new study is proposing a link between what happens on the sun and what happens under our feet, specifically solar flares and earthquakes. The theory goes that these massive solar storms disturb our planet's ionosphere, and that could generate electric fields strong enough to actually affect fragile fracture zones in the Earth's crust. It's definitely an idea that's sparking a lot of debate right now.
Okay, let's zoom way, way in now, right down to the molecular level, to talk about a breakthrough that's shaking up some long-held rules in chemistry.
This is one of those they said it couldn't be done stories. After a 50-year quest, chemists at CERN University have finally done it. They've created a stable, silicon-based aromatic ring. Now, these aromatic rings are fundamental building blocks of chemistry, and they're almost always made of carbon. Making one out of silicon was thought to be impossible. So this breaks some major structural rules and could totally open the door to new kinds of molecular electronics. For our final segment, we're going to look at evolution with stories that span an incredible 190 million years. Check this out. A brand new fossil has been identified on the UK's famous Jurassic Coast. It's a 190-million-year-old marine reptile, and it's got an amazing nickname, the sword dragon of Dorset. And this isn't just another cool fossil. It's a really important one. It helps paleontologists fill in a huge gap in the family tree of these ancient sea creatures, the ichthyosaurs. It's like finding a missing photograph in a family album, giving us a crucial snapshot of a time in their evolution that we just didn't know much about before. All right, here's a bit of a mythbuster for you. You've probably heard that old story that something like 1 in every 200 men is a direct descendant of Genghis Khan. Well, a new modern genomic study has taken a closer look, and it turns out the real number of his relatives is actually way, way lower. And finally, for a stunning example of evolution happening right before our eyes, researchers in Tokyo Bay have discovered that our city lights are literally forcing a species to split in two. Populations of these little critters called Ligia isopods are genetically splitting apart, all based on how well they can tolerate our brightly lit urban areas. It's just a powerful, real-time reminder of how much our human activity is shaping the natural world.
And that concludes this Science News Bulletin. Another Science News update will follow in 24 hours.